All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the podcast, Redesigning Normal. I'm your host, Andrew Southern. And today I am joined by Eric Slaymaker, who is the president of Wingers USA Incorporated, which is an incredible restaurant chain out of Salt Lake City that has 25 locations. Eric, thank you for joining me.
Great to be here, Andrew, and thank you very much. And yes, incredible restaurant chain. I like the way you introduced that, of course.
uh, so, Eric, can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, how you came to be the president of Wingers, and a little bit about the business?
Sure. Wingers, I opened the first Wingers restaurant when I like to think when I was a young kid, but it was all the way back in 1993. First location was in a place called Bountiful, Utah, just outside of Salt Lake City. That first Wingers, I just scraped up money from friends, family, anywhere I could get to get open, and it was a small little 2,800 square foot diner at the time, and it was actually that building was a modular building that was built in Florida, shipped in 4 pieces. Somehow I thought that was a good idea. And plopped down on a foundation. But we quickly became known for our world famous wings, and particularly we've got this unique, original, amazing sauce that we have become world famous for, and it took off from there. Obviously, we've evolved as a brand over 27 years now, almost coming up on 28 years, and but it started. Back then, and we've been doing it through a lot of thick and thin myself. And obviously, COVID's just been one more challenge that we've been working through. But we're actually coming out pretty well and pretty excited about our prospects moving forward.
Amazing. So you built this company?
Yeah, I founded it and built it, and I do have my brother Scott is a partner with me, and I have my brother Scott and my father had been in the restaurant business prior to that, particularly as franchisees.
Mm-hmm.
They built actually quite a company themselves as franchisees with brands like TGI Fridays, Tony Roma's at the time in the 80s and 90s when they had it was actually quite a big concept. You don't see a ton of them around now. They're internationally, they're still around.
Sure.
Sizzler restaurants, and so there'd been a background in my family in the restaurant business. So,
got it. So you kind of knew what, like at least what the factors were in
yeah,
building
I
one.
kind of knew the ins and outs, the ups and downs, the pros and cons, and and I'm just barely starting to learn those even better now.
Right, of course. So are you set up to franchise out this concept, or do you own and operate all the locations?
No, our brand is about half franchise stores now,
Okay.
and about half company owned stores. So we're kind of a 50-50 brand, and we actually started franchising back in the early 2000s, and then our brand evolved and opened a number of franchises. But around 2010, particularly when the Great Recession hit, we were not necessarily happy. We wanted to improve our unit level economics, and so we actually pulled back from franchising for a few years,
Mhm.
and we really retooled and reimaged our store. We had some goals that we've been hitting those goals, in fact, blowing past those goals lately. And so we're in the process now of relaunching our franchise program, particularly we're in the Mountain West now. We're a small regional company, but we're just perfectly positioned coming out of COVID, and which I'm sure we'll talk about a little more, but we're going to be moving towards the Midwest and primarily we're looking to franchise territories towards that.
Amazing. And the good news is that like, everyone has to eat, and everyone loves chicken wings, right? So like on the face of it,
You know, I
just
still
as a
go back
basic.
and I go back and think about it, and I think when I started this and we started doing wings, back in the early 90s, hardly anybody was doing wings at the time. And I remember what we were paying for wings, which was wings was a byproduct. I mean, it was
Right.
kind of a throwaway product. No, it was a piece of the bird that nobody wanted at the time, and they just got more and more, yeah, and they were cheap, and they got more and more popular. Obviously, it seems like today, I'm actually surprised myself because everybody's. It seems like everybody's jumped into the wing segment, which is
Right.
good, and I guess it's validation. Um, but and the other piece too is that it's so many full service brands. Chili's is an example. Uh, the Outback Group, they're all doing virtual wing brands now, where they're creating virtual brands out of the back of their kitchens. They're selling them on third party delivery sites like DoorDash and that.
Oh, they don't even exist as like physical locations, but they
They
do exist on
no,
DoorDash.
and even
Huh.
TGI Fridays, which we still have an affiliation with, and a long history with, they launched a chicken brand that's a virtual brand, that they call Conviction Chicken, and they actually work pretty well. And so, if you would have told me that everybody was going to launch a chicken or wings virtual brands during this, I wouldn't have foreseen that. And at the same time, um, on one hand, think, oh my gosh, more competition, and on the other hand, we're actually coming out of this doing better than ever, and so it's not affecting us negatively one bit, from
That's
our perspective. And
great.
so
So it is like
I
market
just,
validation.
yeah, I guess the overall segment, and we're chicken specialists in what we do. Even though we are a full service diner, we have a variety of items on the menu, and we specialize in craft beers and all that, but we still have signature uh, chicken items that we're known for. And
Awesome.
it's not, no, it's actually I don't know if it's made us stronger or better, but it seems to have been doing that.
I mean, that's great to hear. Where I grew up in Princeton, New Jersey, and anyone that's listening to the podcast that's been to Princeton, New Jersey knows that there's a place. There used to be a place called Chuck's Buffalo Wings. So even from when I was like a kid, wings were like a special treat because you could go get like a bunch of like kids together and go buy like 100 wings in like a big like a tin, you know, and
Really?
maybe some fries. Yeah. So I actually didn't know that it was like unusual. But just hearing you talk, like maybe people weren't as exposed to wings when I was growing up as I was.
And there were certain pockets in the East, as obviously Buffalo's where they originated. The
Right.
original Anchor Bar is kind of, they take credit for serving the original wings. Certainly, a lot of pockets in the East is where a lot of the wing craze started. But at the same time, at that time, it was still small pockets. It wasn't really what it is today, as
Got
being
it.
the popular item that it is now.
Do you do like hot sauces and all that, or is that like
Yeah, we
a
do. We
different
do.
segment?
We do. We do 16 different sauces or rubs, and our culinary departments always come up with something cool and something new. However, Wingers is known for, everybody calls it Winger sauce, or the actual name of it is Winger's Original Amazing Sauce, which is kind of, it's what everybody rushes to Wingers to go for. You've got to have their wings, or our sticky fingers, which is our version of boneless wings, and we're really known for having it coated in our Wingers Original Amazing Sauce. So yeah, we got a
Got it. And
variety,
I
but
imagine
we've
you
got a
sell that. I
specialty.
imagine you sell that online as well.
Oh yeah, we sell that online.
Let's tell everybody that you sell this incredible mythical sauce online.
Yes, mythical. That's right. It is good.
Oh,
It's addicting. I have to admit, it is addicting.
I hope after the show you'll send me a bottle or two.
Okay,
so
there's a nice ask. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
absolutely. No, it's okay.
So all right, let me go back in time because I want to talk a little bit about how you've been dealing with COVID. If we go back about a year, maybe February, March, when did COVID-19 get on your radar as something that may affect your business and in your life?
Early March last year.
Okay.
I mean, I think everybody kind of heard about it in January, February. We knew
Yeah.
this was a thing happening overseas, but suddenly in early March it said, "Whoa, this may be something that we actually have to deal with here in the U.S." And I specifically remember it was the weekend last year of March 13th, where uh, we came and looked, and there nothing had changed. There'd been no government regulations, but we just saw our volume that weekend, that Friday, Saturday, just drop 50% out of nowhere, and
Right.
we realized that. And yeah, this is going to affect the economy and business and what we do in a big way. And then it was Monday, it was either the 15th or the 16th of March last year that I believe that in most places the economy in general was just kind of shut down, and that's
Yep.
where we closed, and we had to go to takeout only, and that was hey, that was for everybody. That was scary. Nobody knew what we were facing really, and we had I had very little. We were all thinking, you go back and you mention that. I think, and everybody's thinking, couple weeks,
Hmm.
couple weeks, and we'll be able to sneak back open, and we'll get past this. We just have to, last a couple weeks, and a couple weeks came, and it wasn't going away, and a couple more weeks, and a couple more weeks, and suddenly we're into April, and we're doing takeout only. When it first hit, our sales there was certainly a shock to the system, and we were doing only about 35 to 40% of normal typical sales, and this was takeout only.
Hmm.
And we were adjusting quick. We were doing everything we could uh, to really become as competitive and have the best takeout product. We had always done pretty well in takeout ourselves because the one thing we've been in a lucky position is that chicken itself has always been an acceptable takeout and delivery type of food. And in fact, I'd read through COVID, I think pizza and chicken were kind of right at the top of the list. So we were very fortunate to be
Sure.
known and obviously have a name, Wingers, that has a connotation of signature chicken, and it's accepted. Whereas we still had at that time a partnership in a TGI Fridays. This is just for an example that up in Boise, Idaho, that at that time we were down 90%, and
Wow.
it was hemorrhage time, um, and it was pretty
Wow.
scary. And the the one thing that I noticed really quickly, particularly with our brand with Wingers, is that our takeout and third party delivery started building rather quickly. Next thing you know, we were doing about 50% of sales in April, I would say. And then that build up to we were only down about 30%, and then about 25%. Um, and so it
All on
was
takeout. It's driving all with takeout.
pretty much at that point, the first 2 months for us, it was all on takeout.
Okay.
And I would say we got really lucky because uh, in our the states that we operate, most of it by about the first part of June, they allowed us to reopen at about 50% capacity. Every state was a little bit different. Nevada was at 25% capacity, and we did have these waves that would come and go, as we all know. But the one thing that we found um, that as soon as we were able to open at 50% capacity and still with our takeout, our sales bounced back to close to flat to the last
Hmm.
year. And
Wow.
so, for your question, we really saw about 2 months of panic and a
Sure.
lot of adjustment. And then all of a sudden, we bounced back to flat, and we spent most of the second half of 2020 with relatively very close to comparable sales to 2019, and we were
Wow.
running somewhere around at that point about 40% takeout and 60% dine-in through the last half of 2020. And so we were, when I say we got lucky, we were surviving.
Right.
The one thing that I've found in our industry is obviously the food industry, restaurant industry. We were on the front lines, as with a lot of industries are right on the front lines of this: travel, airlines, hotels, I guess you could say supermarkets, even though they never really close, but they're really dealing with customers face to face, and that's the way we have to survive and deal with it. But in the restaurant industry itself, it was completely a matter of winners and losers.
Okay.
It seems like the winners through this won big, and the obvious winners immediately were those places that were quick service, did well with takeout, drive-throughs. Those places, yeah, they were hurt immediately, but then most of them came back. On the other hand, you've had full-service restaurants, the full-service segment, casual theme segment, certainly has been greatly impacted. They're the ones who are really hurt. Those who really, really have to live off of people coming in the restaurant
Is that like
and
an
having an
Applebee's?
experience. Applebee's,
Okay.
Chili's, Cheesecake Factory,
Yep.
yeah, Yard House, Olive Gardens. Now, a lot of those have survived, and they've come and done okay, and a lot of them are still struggling pretty well. And I would say, and then there's the other segment is those independent, kind of higher end fine dining, which I
Mm-hmm.
think were really affected, really hurt. A lot of the steak places, it's getting a Ruth's Chris steak is not something that you typically get for takeout.
Right.
A lot different than chicken wings, for example. And so we were fortunate. We're going to come out of this actually stronger. But in watching what happened to the overall industry, and it's been obviously dramatic. There's going to be changes that have happened this last year. It just basically accelerated change that are going to stay. And
Well,
so,
Eric, you've been in this business for a while now, right? So you've probably seen other disruptive things come along to sort of challenge your restaurants.
yeah, yeah. So absolutely.
Yeah, I'd just be interested to see I don't know, like the healthy eating trend or something, the stuff that can challenge you, right? There's
Yeah.
certain people that come along, and how do you respond to these things just generally as a leader?
So I'd say maybe the biggest change that's happened over the past 15, 20 years, it's been the rise of what they call fast casual.
Okay.
And fast casual would be the Chipotle's concepts,
Sure.
and Panera Bread, and those that typically you order at a counter, and you either take it away or they have some limited seating. But the fast casual game has also upped their game when it comes to food quality compared to the old typical fast food that we all, of yesteryear. And so that's where, and there's two things that were happening in consumer trends, I think, is one, you're looking for a convenience experience. You want something fast. You want something that you think is a value. But you don't want to sacrifice quality, and that's where I think the fast casual has filled that need for convenience and
Sure.
quality. And then there's still the other factor of people still like to go out and have experiences. They like to go out with friends and hang out, and whether that's have good food, have a beer, and so that's the segment that we've been playing in.
Right.
But and so there has been a lot of, fast casual actually has been cutting in dramatically over the years into casual theme. There's been a little bit of a rebalancing at that. And fast casual, for the most part, has done okay through this. They've recovered pretty well.
Sure. I mean,
Casual dining.
Chipotle doesn't have a bar though. I don't really know much about the restaurant industry, but what you're describing, I get it. Like I'm not going to go hang out with my friends at Chipotle, but I'd love to
Yeah,
meet somebody for a drink and some wings at a restaurant.
at a Wingers restaurant and ale house, right?
Exactly. No,
Yeah, exactly.
they're just different experiences. One, you stop over after, football practice or something,
Yes.
and the other is you like, let's meet there at 7 kind of thing.
Yeah, and we're gonna and the one thing that I predict coming out of COVID, I actually feel while there's been a big trend towards fast casual, and it really has filled that convenience need
Hmm.
for consumers. I, Casual dining experiences are not going away. People still want that chance. That's just, it's a different thing. Sometimes I'm looking for something quick, and sometimes I want to go with friends or with girlfriend or wife and go sit and actually enjoy myself there.
Yeah,
And that's not
just
going to go away.
definitely
And
not. I actually think
and
there's people that want to do that as soon as they can or as soon as it's safe to do
well,
so.
and I think that's actually going to come back in a big way.
Sure.
And this last couple of weeks for us have, I mean, we've seen it. We've seen that pent up demand, and people are, in all honesty, it's probably still a little early
Hmm.
because we're still not out of this pandemic. But what I can tell is that we still have a lot of people who are just saying that they've gotten vaccinated, or that they feel like others have gotten vaccinated
Sure.
maybe, and they just kind of say it's time. I can tell you right now, my mom and my father-in-law, they've been pent up for a year, and they're in their 80s, and my father-in-law's in his 90s, and the first thing he says is they just got vaccinated, they're done, they're past their 2 weeks, and they're saying, we want to go out to eat. You're
Yeah.
taking us out to dinner, because
My
we
mom
haven't
and
done
dad did
that
the
in a
same.
year.
They did the exact same thing. My dad was like waiting for a year to go get a steak, and they got
So
vaccinated and they like made a reservation for a Saturday night and went and got a steak.
and
Um,
so that's coming back in a big way. And there's probably going to be a surge. It'll probably be a temporary, well, I don't know about temporary, but it'll probably be a big surge, and then it'll wane a little bit. But
got it.
that's happening right now.
I have another question. Just back in it, you said it was a couple months maybe where it was a little dodgy. As the president, I would imagine this is sort of like being stuck in an elevator. It's like it's terrible to be stuck in an elevator, but one of the worst things about it is you don't know when the elevator is going to start moving again, right?
Oh yeah.
And there's really, I remember in April and May, like there was like nobody knows what's going on.
Yeah.
I was speaking to a lot of different people, and nobody had any idea. So it's like it could be 2 months or it could be 8 months.
Yes.
How did you sort of prepare your business, or think about how to prepare your business? And as a second question, did you have any supply chain issues, or were people just pumping out chicken wings for sale anyway, that you could still get everything you needed to operate your takeout business?
Um, yeah, we did have a few supply chain issues. However, um, a lot of it at that point, there was, at least in our distribution houses, there was actually a surplus
Okay.
of a lot of product at that time. We did have to, for those first couple of months, we did have to furlough hourly employees because we just didn't have the ability to be able to keep everybody employed at our restaurant level.
Right.
I am proud to say that while we thought about it, but we never did furlough or cut anybody at our corporate or executive level, and our upper management or management store level. And
Hmm.
so we worked hard to, even though it was painful, we wanted to keep everybody on. We didn't want to have to shut down and then figure out how to
Sure.
rebuild the company from scratch. And so
Sure.
you're right, but at the end of the day, nobody knew how long this was really going to last. But I personally think we got through it because we kept telling ourselves it was only another 2 weeks.
Right.
I'm sure we were fooling ourselves. Just another 2 weeks. And
Right.
so you know, but
It makes it more bearable if you think about it that way. Because if anyone
yeah,
just showed up and
and
said, "Go ahead, sorry."
well, and we did qualify. We did take advantage of the PPP money at the time, and we hired everybody back plus, and so we staffed our stores for a couple of months there with, we had like 5 times the staff of what we needed, and everybody was cleaning like crazy. Uh, but we hired them all back because basically the whole purpose of that program was to get people to fund businesses to get people back employed.
Of course,
And
right?
so we absolutely did that, and felt, it certainly was helpful at the time. It got people, didn't get us out of the pandemic, but it certainly kind of got the economy going again.
Sure.
Um,
Eric, what did you do with your actual restaurants? Like, did you change them for capacity, or did you add anything to them to make them cleaner, healthier, more efficient? Like, what did you change?
yeah, so we implemented a number of things at the level of what we do as far as all of our how we serve food, for example.
Okay.
All of our drinks came out with lids. Anything that came out with sauces, we would serve with lids. So everything was as sanitary as possible. Um, we had a number of sanitation specialists who were there for just constantly cleaning. At the time, our servers could not bus dirty dishes. They had to have specialists at the restaurant to be able to take those away. Um, and and you still think back is that uh, I think a lot of the science has shown that was probably not generally necessary, but at the time we didn't really know what we didn't know,
Right. Of
and
course.
so
Yeah.
we were doing things like that. Um, we never went to the point. A lot of restaurants put up dividers among their booths and tables. Instead of doing that, we actually just blocked off every other table,
Sure.
and so we would actually just put postcards that we can't sit people at this table, and so we're just seating tables 2, 4, 6, 8, and we were keeping separation like that. And the other thing that we've been doing and we're going to continue to do since COVID hit, is we're actually creating specific takeout desks in our restaurants where guests or third party delivery, they go and they pick up takeout.
Hmm.
And so we literally 2 weeks ago just opened it was a week and a half ago, just opened a new store. Kind of a cool story. We reopened a new store back in Bountiful, brand new re-imaged Wingers Restaurant and Ale House in Bountiful, which is where, if you remember, that was where that first little
Yeah.
diner opened in 1993. So we reopened a brand new, little larger store there, and we built that with the takeout. Our plan is that any new stores as we grow will have a takeout area, and it's going to be takeout and third party not going away. And so, when I tell you that there's certainly going to be uh, demand for going in and having an experience, that's not going away either. Neither's takeout. It's going to be. I'm excited about where we are because we have we've kind of fallen into a really cool hybrid model
Right.
where we're able to have this really cool experience in store with both food, drink, and then we also have a significant takeout and delivery, third party delivery piece of our business, which kind of positions us perfectly as how I think that the industry is going coming out of this pandemic.
Well, yeah. If you just think about it, like we go to stores to buy stuff like jeans. You can also buy them online, right?
Yeah.
And have it delivered to you. And food would naturally take that same course. Particularly if I go to a restaurant and I have a great experience in the dining hall or dining room, But it's very clear to me that there's another table over here where there's a robust takeout business, right? There's just this fact that there's like another section for that. It like puts it in my head, like I can get takeout from this place, or I can get delivery from this place, right? So it makes a lot of sense. That sounds really good for that it's not a new location. It's the old location that's been revamped, right?
Well, it's about a block. It's about a half a block away. So it actually is technically a new location. We didn't, that modular building that was 20. Yeah. It was not worth saving. Okay. Yeah. It was being held together by duct tape. So we didn't renew that lease and went to a new spot. So
amazing. This is so we've sort of gone through the past and we've gotten to the present. And actually talking about the future, right? With this takeout, what do you think is the future for your business? What do you, beyond the takeout, is there anything else that you think will sort of survive beyond COVID that you'd like to keep going? I mean, I would imagine you wouldn't like to skip every other table, right? But
certainly those are, those restrictions are going to slowly go away. And it is kind of state to state. Going back though, Andrew, it was funny because I was having a conversation with a good friend of mine, a doctor who heads up the public health for Utah Valley University. And she was doing a little post analysis, and she said, when it comes out of this, as far as how all the states handled this, I think what's going to happen, and I would agree with her completely, is you have the extreme states, like say you take Florida and South Dakota, who kind of opened everything up, and they're touting they did it right. And she says, I'm not sure when we look at all the numbers at the end of the day if that's going to be the case. And then you go on the other hand, you got California and New York and Oregon, which pretty much shut everything down. And I think she came back and said, her name's Dr. Sue Jackson. I'll give her a plug. She said, I think what's going to come back is that both of those extremes are going to be looked at as probably the wrong approach, and they didn't have the right balance as far as how do we deal with it at the public and policy level, and which I agree with completely. Now, coming out, I would say is probably what I said is I really think, believe it or not, I think after a number of years of fast casual having a lot of growth and really building in market share, I have a feeling, and this is purely a prediction now, that dine-in is going to actually have a resurgence. Mm-hmm. And I think that a year away from it for a lot of people is going to say, wow, I missed that. That's a part of the human experience that we really need and we miss. And I think that there's going to be a little bit of a resurgence in that casual dining experience. And so,
sure. Well, what are you hearing from your guests? Like, people are coming to the stores, obviously they're coming now. When you get feedback from them, is it like, whew, like we've been waiting to come, or like, what do they say?
Absolutely. Those ones who haven't been coming as much. Now, the funny thing about, and we've all seen this about COVID, a lot of our guests have been coming. They never stopped coming, and it's almost like they were in denial the whole time, and that it kind of is what it is, and they're not going to change their mind. But to your point, a lot of those guests are coming back now, really trickling back, and I think it's going to come back as a flood. And yes, they're all coming back, and we're hearing so much is like, oh my Lord, it's so good to be able to come in and just to be able to sit down and enjoy and be served, and not just picking it up and rushing home. Right. And so I think there's a piece of that is we're going to appreciate that more. And that is,
it's a theme actually in a lot of these podcast interviews that I'll widen the scope a little bit and say that it has to do with like culture. Like, I spoke to a woman who does corporate interiors for sort of big companies in San Francisco, and sure, like there's a bit of there's a little bit less demand for such huge, office spaces with 20,000 people or something, in them. But the culture, to protect culture, is still important for businesses and for humans in general. Everyone was sort of shocked into understanding that, like, being around other people, even if they're strangers sitting in the booth next to you, is like, there's something about that that's super important. And you only would recognize that if you made everybody stay home for a month or longer, and then you start to be like, what's missing? I have my family here and that's great, right? We're safe, but there's something missing.
And I think another thing that's going to be imprinted on on all of our generations who've lived through this is our awareness of pathogens and viruses that we probably didn't think much about. We knew they were there, but didn't think much about before. But I would put this akin to somebody who went through the Great Depression in the 30s who lived through that.
Right.
And they say, and obviously we didn't live through that, but we've all heard those who lived through it, it got imprinted, and they were always aware of that for the rest of their life. They lived through that depression. And I have a feeling that those type of things, I think a lot of people are going to be wearing masks for a long time, particularly during winter months and
right.
when they're indoors more. It's just going to be because they're going to be more aware of it.
You're describing a trauma. You're basically describing a trauma, like a collective trauma. Some people took it more seriously than others, but it's like it's in you, right?
Yeah. We see the reality of it,
right.
And I think everybody knows. None of us had ever lived through that again, and now we know the reality, because I mean this could happen again in our lifetimes, and so
sure.
In fact, they're saying that it not could. It's not a matter of if; it's a matter of when something like this happens again. And so those type of things. And when I look at almost any industry, is so cleanliness, sanitation is going to be that itself is going to be imprinted on people.
Sure.
Everything that you go on a subway in New York and you think twice about touching the rails now, or sanitize even more when you do those type of things. And is a restaurant like ourselves, how well do I feel safe and comfortable? Are they really serious about sanitation and cleanliness and keeping their guests and their employees really safe as possible? So that's going to be a piece that I don't think is going away at all either.
It's basically, I would imagine for you, it's a bit of like a show and tell, right? You need to do let's say it's the wipe down of the table, which I'm sure you guys did anyway, but to sort of wipe down the whole booth. When you are sitting there and you see the booth next to you being wiped down after the person has paid the check and gone, again, it's like a subliminal thing where it's like, oh, these guys do a really good job of it. Like, this is a clean place, right?
We absolutely wanted, we told all of and we try to train all of our stores and restaurants to make sure that our customers saw us constantly cleaning.
Right.
They need to see that. It's not something that we need to hide, or when somebody's looking the other way, we go clean that booth. No, they've got to see it. They've got to see us constantly, sanitizing pretty much everything in our restaurant, inside our facility.
Sure.
And
that'll make the most skittish people. Exactly. Because there's always going to be like a band of sort of the most traumatized, skittish folks. And you want them to come to the restaurant too, right? You want them to feel comfortable. So there may be some people that don't really care once that they've got vaccinated, but there's other people that are a lot more aware, and they need to know that, like, going there is a safe place, and it's always a safe place, even well after COVID is gone. Because to your point, there are other places around the world that have been shocked by pandemics, and smaller in size, but still, a big deal. SARS and whatnot. And they adopted all kinds of stuff a long time ago, 10 years ago. And they've sort of been doing it ever since. And of course, turned it on tenfold during COVID. But the US really never, I don't know anybody that was alive during the 1918 pandemic, right? But nobody does. No. But like, we know what it takes now, we understand what it is and what it can do. So the preparedness and the sort of like, I think you're right. I think a lot of that stuff will survive.
And then for us, we really we feel like we've kind of been able to use this pandemic, if that's the right word to use, and I think it's been able to make our brand stronger. I think we're able to exit this stronger and on a growth curve. And
Hmm.
like I'd mentioned earlier, I think it really positions us to look at a lot of new markets. And it might, for us, it has the possibility of opening up real estate opportunities,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of brands and a lot of, sadly, it's a lot of independents that probably did not make it through this.
Hmm.
But there's real estate opportunities that can be taken advantage of, and so I think we've been really working hard to get ourselves in a position so that we can be advantageous of that,
Sure.
and to use it to be able to grow into new markets as we've positioned ourselves well.
I mean, it certainly sounds like it because you've got the balance of the experiential dining room bar situation, and then now it sounds like you've really grown the takeout portion as well. So it's a good like mix.
And now it's time to come back into a Wingers and have some wings and a beer.
I gotta get out to Salt Lake or the surrounds and
You too.
well, Eric, I don't want to take all your day, so I really, really appreciate you coming on and giving us your thoughts on all of this stuff. It's a really an incredible story. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's been fun.
So thank you very much. I want to thank our guest Eric Slaymaker from Wingers USA Incorporated, Wingers Restaurants, for being on the podcast. Thanks again, Eric.
Thanks, Andrew.